There's a skein of yarn on my desk. It's been there for 11 days. It's this loud, unapologetic pink, the kind of color that doesn't ask permission. I haven't touched it. Not once. Cora has sniffed it twice. She's more productive than I am. I'm not the only one. Just this month, 3 people in my NAMI peer support group said the same thing to me. I used to make things. I don't know what happened to me. 3 different people, same sentence, more or less. I used to have a word for that. I called it lazy. I was wrong. The advice is so confident. Show up every day. Push through the resistance. True artists don't wait for inspiration, they manufacture. And I absorbed every word of it for years. I have a whole shelf of books about discipline and creative habits. I have highlighted passages. I have sticky notes. I had at one point a color-coded schedule of my own creative time that I built at 11 p.m. on Sunday because I was that committed to being a person who shows up. I did not, in fact, show up. I thought that meant something fundamentally was broken in me. The other people had something I didn't. Some internal generator that kept running when mine just stopped. Here's what nobody in those books told me. You cannot make art in fight or flight mode, not because you lack discipline, because your brain is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. The skein is still on my desk, and it turns out it's not a character flaw. It's a nervous system, and I can show you exactly why. Here's what's actually happening in your brain. When your nervous system perceives threat, and I mean any threat, stress, shame, a cruel inner critic, chaotic environment, financial pressure, your prefrontal cortex starts going offline. That's the part of your brain responsible for creative thinking, for making connections, for play, for the kind of loose, expansive thinking that making things requires. Researcher Betson Corkill, who has spent decades studying therapeutic effects of knitting specifically, describes this as the difference between a brain in survival mode and a brain in creative mode. They are not the same brain. They cannot be willed into switching. Only safety does that. This is what it looks like when my prefrontal cortex is back online. I can want something again. I can reach for it. That's not discipline. That's a nervous system that finally believes it's safe enough to create. This isn't weakness. This is your brain doing exactly what it evolved to do. It's prioritizing survival over self-expression because, from an evolutionary standpoint, that's correct. You can't paint a cave mural when there's a predator outside. The problem is that modern life keeps generating the same threat signal without the predator ever going away. The harsh inner voice that tells you your work isn't good enough, that's a threat signal. The guilt spiral when you miss a day, that's a threat signal. The comparison to someone else's output, that's a threat signal. Every time you berate yourself for not creating more, you are literally shutting down the part of your brain that creates. You are not motivating yourself. You're terrifying yourself into paralysis and calling it discipline. I live with schizoaffective disorder and PTSD. My nervous system has been in some version of threat mode for most of my adult life. For a long time, I thought that meant I wasn't a real creative person. Because real creative people produce. They show up. They don't let their mental health be an excuse. Except that framing is also the lie. I also facilitate peer support groups through NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. And I've watched this exact pattern play out in other people over and over. The ones who are too broken to be creative. The ones who gave up making things because they couldn't show up consistently. They weren't undisciplined. They were scared. Same as me, same as you. What changed for me wasn't discipline. It was safety. It was finding one small corner of my apartment where I felt okay. It was knitting, which, by the way, I only learned 2 years ago. Not because I was trying to be productive, but because the repetitive motion actually calms my nervous system down. I've started calling it the metronome because that's what it is. Every stitch is bilateral. Left needle, right needle, left, right. Your brain stem tracks rhythm the way it tracks breath. It doesn't need you to think about it. When my nervous system is running that fret loop, this is the thing that finds the beat first, before my thoughts can catch up, before I've decided I'm okay. The knitting knows before I do. It was giving myself permission to make something imperfect without narrating it into crisis. Safety doesn't mean easy. It doesn't mean comfortable. It means your nervous system believes it's okay to be here right now. And from that place, and only that place, creativity becomes possible. So, what does this actually look like? Instead of asking, why don't I have more discipline? Ask, what does my nervous system need to feel safe enough to create? The question changes everything. I call this the brain budget scale. Every creative act costs something from your nervous system. The question isn't whether you have enough discipline, it's whether your budget is in the black. And some days, a lot of days, safety is the only deposit that works. When I'm cooked, and I mean nervous system fried, not just tired, I don't reach for a hack. I find the same chair, the same light. I stop deciding anything else. I remove the audience, camera off, a notebook nobody will ever read. Then I let the body go first, not the brain. A walk, a shower, 5 minutes of knitting before I ever open the editing software. I let the metronome find the beat before I ever ask myself to think. And only then, I create. For me, the last piece of it is Cora. Having her nearby tells my nervous system, you're not in danger. It's okay to make something. None of these are hacks. None of these are productivity tricks. They are nervous system regulation, and nervous system regulation is not a detour around creativity. It is the prerequisite for it. Stop asking yourself to perform under threat. Start asking yourself what safety looks like. Because you were never lazy. You were never undisciplined. You were scared. And that's a completely different problem with a completely different solution. That skein is still on my desk, by the way. I picked it up this morning, not because I finally had discipline, because I finally felt safe enough. Your brain isn't broken. It's been trying to protect you from a world that told you productivity was the only measure of worth. Pick up the yarn anyway. I want to know what that looks like for you, not what your creative practice looks like on a good day. What does safety look like? Leave it in the comments. And if you want to go deeper on this, next week I'm publishing a video about friction, because safety doesn't mean frictionless. And that's a whole other conversation. I'll see you there.